Hey guys, welcome back to 2.0. I'm JR and I am excited to be talking to you today. I have one of the greatest guests I've ever had. Actually, he's going to be my first guest on the show and I'm excited to have him. And I'm telling you, once you hear his story and his testimony, it's going to blow your mind. So, it is my pleasure to have this gentleman on the show with me today. So, please help me welcome my dear brother, Willie Trujillo. Hey, Willie, welcome to 2.0. It's a pleasure to have you, man.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen you from time to time from the church, and I know that you're related to a sister at the church, but I've never actually had the opportunity to talk to you and get to know you. It wasn't until that I attended the financial class that you were leading. Then I got to hear a little bit of, some snippet of your story. And when I heard it, I was like, oh my God, I gotta have this guy on the show, man, because, this platform is about people who've gone through some traumatic experiences and then they turn that into something positive, and which is exactly what you did with all of your stories. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you today, man.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to be able to share with you and with your audience some of the things that have gone on in my life. I have also been married and divorced, and I've married for 11 years. I was married at the age of 18 years
Hmm.
old, and it's pretty young, and I had a couple of young, children right away, and
Right.
and not too long after that, maybe 11 years later, I got a divorce and I got remarried, and I have a blended family, and so it's a lot I've been through, and
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And
yeah.
when I heard that, I was like, you know what? You are the perfect example of the 2.0 idea that I've been talking about. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show. So let's start from the beginning, right? So you
Okay.
said you were married for 11 years. That was your
Yeah.
first marriage, right?
Right.
So let's talk to me a little bit about that. How old were you when you were married the first time?
18 years old.
So you got married at 18.
Yes.
So was it one of those situations where she was pregnant and you were forced to get married, or?
Absolutely, yes. She was pregnant, and I was anxious to get out of my house, so it was kind of a combination of things that happened.
So it was more like an escape for you.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Young and not knowing what I was doing.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah. So we
Okay.
got married.
So you guys were married for 11 years.
11
And
years.
how many kids out of that marriage?
Three.
Three
Uh,
kids.
two boys, two girls, and a boy. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then eventually, things didn't work out and you ended up getting a divorce.
Right.
Right. So what was that process like for you? Because
Well,
I'm thinking you got married at 18, 11 you were married for over 11 years, so around 29, that's when you were going through a divorce. So how was that?
well, like you said you used the key word trauma.
Mm,
It was extremely traumatic. It took many years to overcome that trauma, but after at the age of 29, my whole life started falling apart, and
hmm.
I think I didn't mention it yet, and but I was a drinker, a heavy drinker, and I had stopped drinking for many years. I didn't drink or drug for 6 years,
Mm.
and I messed up and I started again at the age of, I think it was 28.
Okay.
And the whole marriage and everything started falling apart.
Wow. So the drinking issue started while you were married, or was it because of the divorce and the mental issues that you were going
Well,
through?
I grew up drinking.
Oh, you grew up drinking. Okay.
I was drinking since I was 7 years old. I was drunk. My first time ever being drunk was the age of 7 years old.
Wow.
They threw me in a tub of water to bring me back to my consciousness,
Oh my
and I
God.
drank most every weekend from
Hmm.
that in until I was,
Okay.
yeah, around then, yeah.
And you think that was part of the downfall of the marriage?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's a big contributing factor. Yeah,
Mm.
it was a mess.
Got it.
Yeah.
So now, fast forward to the age 29, you ended up finding yourself getting a divorce, and then now you have three kids to support.
Yeah.
So what was that process like for you, actually going through the divorce?
It was the most shocking thing I've ever been through because I didn't know how to take care of kids. And my ex-wife left to Florida and
Mm.
she brought the three kids to my house because I was saved for about 2 weeks. And she says, now that you got your life all together, says,
No way.
says,
So she
yeah,
dropped the kids at your
she
front
dropped,
door, and then
yeah,
she took off
yeah,
to
she
to
took out to
Florida.
Florida.
Okay.
And it was part of my prayer. I was praying, for the first 2 weeks with Pastor Miller, Bishop Miller now, and
Hmm.
praying for to get my kids back.
Right.
And I got them back, and I was in a state of shock because I didn't have any skills. I didn't have anything to offer.
Hmm.
No one would hire me,
Right.
and so I found myself in the position of having to go on welfare to
Wow.
support my children.
Wow.
it was the most difficult time of my life, the
Hmm.
most, I would put it, humbling time
Right,
of my life.
right. That's interesting because usually when there is the discussion of divorce or when there's a case of divorce, oftentimes you would see people would rally around the woman more than they do the man, and the man is left alone, just having to deal for himself, having to fend for himself, to support himself, to deal with the mental anguish, with the financial responsibilities that are placed on him. So now it's like for you, it's almost not that it's the opposite, but you ended up with full custody of the kids per se, right? Because she took off and then dropped the kids on your lap, and now you don't have a job. Nobody would hire you. So from a man perspective, like talk to us a little bit about what that was, what that did to you mentally.
Well, first of all, it wasn't exactly that. She had full custody,
Okay.
and the courts ordered me to pay. It was $300 a week back in 1978.
Hmm.
So I was paying a lot of money on my whole. I mean, it was difficult. And then she gave them to me.
Hmm.
That's when she brought them to me, and I had this awesome responsibility of taking care of them, and yet not able. I lost my job. I lost everything. So I was not able to feed them, and that's when I ended up on welfare.
Mm.
Yeah, I, the impact was tremendous, knowing the weight of the world is on me at this point.
Right.
And now I didn't have custody. She had still custody.
Still had,
I still had to pay
so you still
her.
had to pay her
I
even
still
though
had
you
to pay
had
her while I had the kids. Yeah.
even though you had the kids
Yes,
full
yes.
time.
Oh, absolutely. Again, the court had no mercy on me. They
Wow.
they they hit me with it was pretty big. Yeah, I didn't have any income. I
Right.
was on. I had no income, so that kept building up $300 a
Wow.
week, and it got pretty high.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Tens of thousands of dollars.
I
So
can imagine at some point, right? Because
yeah.
you said you ended up in welfare, and so you had stopped drinking for a while, and then you went back to drinking. So I imagine dealing with that situation, having the three kids and not having a job and things like that. You feel like that actually pushed you back into the drinking
No,
habit?
that stopped at that point.
Oh, you did.
When I got the
Okay.
kids, I went to church, and that was the end of my drinking.
Hmm.
And then she came and dropped the kids off. That's when I got the kids.
Got
So
it.
there was no drinking at all. No, just trying to get my life in order. So I was going to school full time.
Right.
I was on welfare, and I had the kids full time. And then finally, I got a job. So I was working full time, going to school full time, take care of the kids. So there was no sleep. So
Wow.
again, it was a extremely difficult time in my life because there was no rest, there was no sleep, just a nap here and there.
Right.
Every day you can take a nap, but that's it. You have to get up and take care of these kids, and
Right.
you got to go to work, and go
So
to
when
school.
when did that when was that I mean, I guess when did you make that switch, right? And to become like not that you were irresponsible before during the marriage, but the fact that I guess, now the all three kids were living with you and you felt the need to provide for them. Is that what kind of like triggered the, I guess, the change or the motivation
No, the
to
change was walking in the gospel light. I walked into the church, and my life changed immediately. When I walked in there, I felt like the weight of the world was removed from me. I had
wow.
a lot of weight, with all the baggage and stuff that I was going through. I went through a lot, with the prison and
Right.
things. It was my second stint in prison. There was two stints anyway, but
Hmm.
and we'll talk about that. But
Sure.
but yeah, I just the weight of the world was lifted off my back, and I was sick and tired of being sick and tired of doing the same thing over and over again,
Hmm.
and getting the same results and wanting something different, and it just wasn't going to happen. So something had to change. And when
Got
I
it.
walked into the house of God, my life changed. I made a decision
Yeah.
to make a
So talk to us about like how, what triggered the decision for you to go to church or that you wanted to go to gospel light. How did that come about?
Well, the night before, on the 4th of July, it was 1979.
Hmm.
1979. Was it 79? No, 89. 1989, 4th of July weekend.
Right.
I had planned on taking out my brother-in-law.
Really?
Yeah, that was the plan that night, and me and a
Wow.
brother were all set and ready. Not a church brother, a physical
Yeah.
brother. Okay, yeah. So we Christians don't plan these things,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that was my plan, and it was we had seriously we're gonna go through with this, and I blacked out.
Oh, wow.
I don't remember what happened. I just know that I woke up the
The
next
night it was
morning.
supposed to happen,
Yeah,
you blacked out.
I blacked out. And I woke up the next morning, and I saw that he was still alive. And I realized at that moment I needed help. I
Wow.
needed help seriously because I was either going to die or I was going to end up killing somebody and be in prison for the rest of my life.
Right.
And I just thought there's got to be more to life than this.
Hmm.
And so that was the change. That was Then I called my mother, and she was a Jehovah's Witness, and she met me in my car, and we talked. And I said, I just want you to bring me to a church where people are not afraid to praise God.
Oh,
They would
wow.
raise their hands,
Yeah.
and she brought me to
She brought
Gospel
you
Light.
gospel light. Oh, man. Praise
Now,
God.
now the reason I mentioned that to raise it was 1981. I walked into a church,
Mm-hmm.
and when I walked into that church, they brought me to the front, and they prayed over me, and they scared the devil right out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time, I did not drink or drug for 6 years without ever going to church anymore, or anything, or even praying.
Wow.
6 years I didn't drink and drug.
Mm-hmm.
That one prayer, and it was back and then in 1989
Right.
when God whispered in my ear that night, the day after that where I almost took my brother-in-law out.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was hearing him say was, imagine if that one prayer for 6 years you were straight.
Yeah.
Imagine if you would walk with me and talk with me, what I can do
Wow.
with you.
Wow.
And I said, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk with you,
With the
and I'm going
Lord.
to talk with you. I'm going to commune with my God, and
Yeah.
that's what changed my life.
Amen, amen. What a powerful story. You know, it's amazing because sometimes you hear people in church saying the enemy is planning things after your life that you don't even know about. You're not even aware of. But somehow God always intervened. And I think that's the same thing that happened with your brother-in-law, right? Because you and your brother had made plans for him. He didn't know what was happening, right?
Oh, he had
But
no
God
idea.
knew it and he saw it and he intervened on his behalf. And you ended up blacking out in the car.
Yeah. And he
And
ended
that's
up
what
becoming
what saved them. Yeah.
yeah, and he ended up becoming a
The
pastor,
pastor, yeah.
and a missionary, traveling missionary, and
Hmm.
did amazing work for the Lord. Amazing, because a year later I went back knocking on his door,
Right, right.
and I said, I just want to share the gospel with you.
Wow.
I thought
That's
he was going to throw me out because he instead he let me in.
yeah, yeah.
He
That's awesome.
couldn't get enough of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Let's go back to the divorce, right? So now you're divorced, you got three kids, you're on welfare, and you're looking for a job, and you can't find a job. So I just want to know, like, mentally, like, how did that impact you as as a man, seeing that you're struggling to provide for your family?
It was terrible. It was humiliating because my mother would always tell me as I was young, she says, "You're a king. You're going to be a leader."
Hmm.
And I find myself, this is the king, the leader that's on welfare. They can't take care of himself.
Right.
I'm supposed to take care of three kids. It was the lowest part of my life. When you think about that you're responsible for the lives of these children,
Hmm.
and you can't take care of yourself. And you're the man. You're
Yeah.
supposed to be the man.
Right.
Society as a whole looks at the man to lead, to be the head.
Hmm.
Now things have changed. Culture has changed dramatically, but realistically, nothing really changed biblically. The
Right.
man is still to be the head, is still to lead. So ultimately, all things fall on him.
Right,
You know.
exactly. Yeah. And sometimes when we find as men when we find ourselves in that situation, it's true that, divorce can lead to depression. It can lead to alcoholism, but sometimes because depending on your personality or the type of man you are, you do take your responsibilities seriously. So it's almost like you don't really have time to sit there and, take it all in and, feel sorry for yourself, because you have responsibilities to meet, right? So you have to get out there, find a job, start working, and start providing for your kids. And I think that's pretty much what you did. And that probably, kept you from going down the path of being depressed, right? Because you had to make sure you're providing for the kids.
Well, I did have to deal with some bouts of depression. There was, that I think it's inescapable at some point. But
Yeah.
but overcoming them was the key. Yeah, we're all going to go through those low spots. There's
Hmm.
a point in time when you look at your life and say, what happened? You don't grow up. You're not born and growing up and saying, I just can't wait to grow up so I can be a single, divorced, no children, homeless.
Yeah.
Those are not the plan. That's not the plan.
Right, right, right.
And so, but you find yourself in that position, and what do?
Hmm.
You have to take some action. And yeah, I went to school, and I went to school for electrical mechanical. And really, it was all God closing and opening doors, because I wanted to do one thing, and
Right.
God had a
God had
different plan.
something else. Yeah.
And so I followed the plan that God had for me. And ultimately, I didn't find the job. The job found me.
Okay.
Someone came to me and said, "Hey, do you need a job?" I'm
That's
like,
that's amazing.
I'm like,
Actually, that was going to be my next question, or
yeah,
just like talk to us about the transition out of welfare
yeah.
into this job.
So I finished school. I had electrical mechanical certificate. So I'm certified as an electrical mechanic,
Uh-huh.
but I still can't get a job. And I'm working on my car outside with my landlord, who happens to be a Christian.
Hmm.
And Another Christian brother comes up walking and says, "Hey, he sees I'm here.
Right.
I'm outside during working hours." He says, "You looking for a job?" And I said, "Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah."
of
He
course.
says, "Well, I'm going to get you a job at Bridgeport Machines."
Hmm.
And let me tell you, it took me on a journey like I would never dream of or imagine, because I
Wow.
started in there. It was pretty bad walking in. I got all these promises and everything was taken away,
Hmm.
and I was cut in half. My pay was cut in half. Everything was kept getting cut in half, cut in half, cut in half. But yet I still just kept praising God through it all. I kept singing this song that though giants are in the land, I will not be afraid.
Mm.
He brought me out to bring me into a promised land. God did not bring me out of this mess to put me into another mess. But there is a time of wilderness
Yeah.
that God wanted me to minister, to talk to me, to meet
Right.
with me, to make that change and empower me to do what He wanted me to do. You
Gotcha.
know,
Gotcha. Amen. What do you think was the most challenging part of the of that divorce during that time for you?
Loneliness, I guess, rejection.
Mm.
It was my fault. I'm not going to blame. I didn't have to create my own problems.
Yeah,
We can always point to the other partner,
of
but
course.
I'm told to look in the mirror. I can only work on me, and
Hmm.
and the majority of the problem was me.
Hmm.
And so it was difficult because I didn't handle rejection well, and yet I put myself to be rejected,
Yeah.
and rejected not just from the marriage, but from job to job to job. It was just
Right.
continuous,
Hmm.
continuously being say no, 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 no. And
Yeah,
if I got a job, I get fired, or let
definitely.
go, So it was, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely can relate to that because, after my divorce as well, there was a period of time where I had to deal with the loneliness as well,
yeah,
and it's something like, men don't really talk about. And that's why I'm trying, I created this platform
yeah.
so that we can, share about the stuff that we go through, post divorce. But yeah, loneliness and also isolation. You know,
Isolation.
that's another problem too because, once the family is divided, now you have to move out and go get your own apartment or go get your own living space. And now it's like all of a sudden you find yourself to be alone in your apartment, just you and your
Yeah,
thoughts.
yeah. Rejected by society.
Right. Yeah.
I'm alone. You're alone, and you're thinking, you see other people, the couples, and you think their lives are perfect, because you see it from the outside. You don't see what's really happening,
Yeah.
and then you want what you see,
Hmm.
but you don't really see the whole picture, and you find yourself even feeling more
Right.
alone and hopeless, almost like,
Yeah.
there's like this is not good. It's
No,
not
no, no,
not a good
not,
place
not
to be. Yeah,
Not
very
at all.
painful.
Exactly, not
Yeah,
at all. And that's why, I always recommend people to, find some support groups,
yeah,
talk to people or go to therapy. In my case, I had a pastor friend that I was meeting with on a regular basis, almost, once a week for like about 2 years. So that really helped me,
yeah,
going through that process a lot. So
yeah,
so I always encourage people to do that, you know.
yeah,
So, there's one thing that you mentioned, is when you said like the majority of the problem was you, right, in the marriage. So, it's not that it makes me happy, but I'm glad that, you have taken accountability because this is something that we see that is very rare, especially with men. We don't always take accountability. We always want to point fingers at the
right.
other partner, and then the partner is pointing fingers at us. But I think, in order to really experience growth, we have to take accountability, right? So we have to say to ourselves, well, I know that I'm responsible for certain things or for certain actions that happen. And then also the other person has to be responsible, have to make that acknowledgement that they're responsible for that as well. And that's the way that you guys are going to grow and become, a better version of yourself, hence the 2.0 platform that we're talking about. So I'm glad to hear that you pointed that out. And not only did you point it out, but you also took the necessary steps to address that.
Right, exactly. If you don't recognize where the problem is, especially your part, because you can't
Yeah.
change your partner or your ex-partner's.
No,
You
no.
can't change them, but you can change you. And if you
Correct.
don't recognize your failings and your shortcomings, you can't grow. So
Hmm.
the beginning starts within, not without.
Right.
And we have a tendency, it's natural to point fingers at everybody. We like to
Hmm.
just say you. But realistically, you need to look in the mirror and say, this is where the buck stops. Is here. I'm the
Got it.
one that did this. I did that. I did this. And no one in their right mind should want to be around me for what I did. And you have to be realistic. No one in
Yeah.
their right mind
Yeah.
should want to be around me. And they did.
Hmm.
Every door was closed. Everywhere I would go,
Right.
no home was open. Everybody had their windows closed. If they see me coming, they shut it down.
Yeah.
If they had some parties going on, they made sure that no one let Willie know what's happening because he'll come in and break the doors down.
They know you had a reputation.
Yeah, I had a
So
reputation. Yeah, so they knew. They just don't tell Willie
you
anything.
got it. Got it. Well, I hope you guys are enjoying this conversation with Willie. As I promised in the beginning of this video, that his conversation, this testimony and stories are mind blowing. So I hope you are enjoying it. So don't forget to tune in next week for part 2 of this conversation. And I'm telling you, you're going to continue to enjoy it. As always, thank you for watching. And don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and feel free to share the story on your social media page. Thanks again for watching. I'm JR, and I'll see you next time.